Mesdames et messieurs,
Hello, fans of Shuklistan, and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. I am your host, Jill Jarris, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you? I see you through the plexiglass of the main media center here in Beijing.
We are still in Beijing, but we are not in Beijing.
That's right. We are hopefully have just made it home from the Paralympics, and today we are sleeping off the jet lag. So we are recording an episode early to give you something new to listen to, and that would be our conversation with Film Buff Fran about our first movie club selection of the year, which is Eddie the Eagle, about the surprise sensation of the Calgary 1988 ski jumping competition, Eddie Edwards. Take a listen. Fran, welcome back. We are talking about Eddie the Eagle, movie about Eddie the Eagle Edwards from Calgary 1988, the famous or infamous British ski jumper who finished dead last in the competition. What do you got for us?
The movie Eddie the Eagle was made back in 2015, so it's a fairly recent movie about the Calgary Olympics and an Olympian in that Olympics. And it stars Taron Egerton as Eddie, along with Hugh Jackman as his coach, with some really incredible co-stars, including Jim Broadbent and Christopher Walken. I nearly died when I saw Christopher Walken. I didn't look in beforehand, and I was like, this is going to be a great one. I love Christopher Walken. But it's a classic Olympic biopic, and they start out with Eddie, whose real name is Michael, as a young boy. And he's holding his breath underwater, and he's trying to become the best at something because he has these dreams of becoming an Olympian. And he realizes early on in the movie that he really is not going to be getting very far. So then he switches gears and says, I'm going to be a Winter Olympian. And he focuses on skiing, and he tries to make the British Olympic ski team. And this is where the movie was kind of interesting because it kind of played the British Olympic officials as these upper crust, hoity-toity, better than thou folks who didn't want some kind of low end poor kid on the Olympic team. And that's how they portrayed it in the movie. And even though it seemed as if he had, as the movie progressed, that he had a good skill set, but it pitted him against the establishment. So then he was not allowed to partake in the British Olympic ski team. So he figured out a way to get into the Olympics. He wanted to be an Olympian at any cost. And so he decided to try ski jumping, which, and according to the movie, he had never really participated in up to that point. So he hops a plane, goes to Germany, and all of a sudden we see him at this, ski jumping facility, trying to learn how to ski jump, never having pretty much researched it really. And there he meets the typical, all I thought about this movie was all the tropes, the typical cast of characters, the happy waitress or owner of the bar that would love to help him out, the curmudgeon coach who he has to coax out of retirement to get him to the finish line, the other ski jumpers from Norway who he was the butt of their jokes. So it had all the fun kind of things you look at in these kind of rags to riches, or these kind of stories from the bottom to success. But I gotta say, it was a really infectiously good movie for me. I don't know. There was just something about it where the positivity and the willingness to give everything you can for something was just, he was very infectious, I thought. I really enjoyed the character that Taron Egerton brought to the screen. I don't know how close he was to the true Eddie the Eagle, but I really enjoyed Taron's performance. What do you guys think?
Absolutely agree on Taron's performance. He was so charming in this movie. He also played Elton John in Rocket Man. And it was funny, as I was getting ready to watch this movie, my daughter said, does he just do biopics? And it's funny having watched both those films because there actually is some similarities to those 2 portrayals. There's a certain charisma, there's a certain outsider-ness
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
way he played Elton John and this, but he absolutely saved this movie for me,
Mhm.
because it was kind of a Cool Runnings knockoff.
You didn't think that the Norwegians really made it for you? I love the bad guys.
And why in the world is Norway training in
In
Germany?
Germany.
Why is the Norwegian team training in Germany? Why does Hugh Jackman only have 1 shirt and no jacket?
And why is an American who was cast out of the ski jumping universe in Germany, in the middle of nowhere?
Well, it's supposed to be Garmisch-Partenkirchen, which is not the middle of nowhere. It is, you
Okay.
know, a previous Olympic host city and is a training center, but thank goodness for Taron Egerton in this film because he just was so charming and
And his
adorable.
mama too. I liked his mother.
Who I think actually those 2 characters from the films that I watched, because I don't really remember this story, surprisingly enough. I mean, I sort of remember it, but I don't have a good firsthand memory of it. Both Jeanette and Michael Edwards were that charming. So
Mhm.
that was nice that the film got that right, but I don't know how much else they got right.
I did a little research after I watched it first because I just wanted to see what they came up with. And I heard that it really wasn't a really, truthful biopic. And when I started doing some research, I was really disappointed. I mean, he didn't train in Germany. He trained in Lake Placid. And I was like, why don't they just show him training in Lake Placid
Well,
then?
then
That would make sense
you couldn't
with
have
an
the hostile
American coach.
Germans.
They wouldn't have the hot tub in the sauna with the Germans. But I don't know, that was just so odd. I'm like, did they just want to stay in Europe? I don't know. They really said that, a lot of the coach was fictitious and he was kind of an amalgam of some other folks that did coach Eddie at some points. What I was struck with was the whole film they were railing against it was the good versus not so much good versus evil, but it was the establishment and the old Olympic guard versus an upstart who dared kind of mess with the system. Nobody just finds a weakness in the point system and the tallies and just gets to go to the Olympics. But he found that loophole where he said in the movie that, they never changed the qualifications for being in the ski jump competition for almost 60 years. So he felt like the regulations weren't as stringent. So he felt like he could make the team. So he gave it his best shot. And that push to kind of just do the best that you can. And just being part of the Olympics was the main thrust. He knew he didn't have a chance to win, but just being there and being a part of it, that was what he was striving for. And the whole movie, it felt like the establishment was like, well, you don't deserve to be here, period. So you shouldn't be here. Let's make it as hard as possible. And I would hope to think that was not what the Olympics is truly about.
Well, they did change the rules after him to get rid
Hmm.
of that loophole, and,
Right.
although we've seen this happen in other sports, Pyeongchang with our ski half pipe, that they had to change the rules on that, to which I said to Ben today when we were watching it, I said, we need to look at ski mountaineering because they don't have their stuff they don't really have much of a federation. Maybe we could all go to Milan Cortina and compete. But there's so many inaccuracies about this movie and so many tropes that you wonder really what is you take a story that is very heartwarming and very much an inspirational story to be the best you can be and strive to be that Olympic standard and make a lot of sacrifices to achieve a goal. And even if that goal isn't being on top of the podium, taking part is the most important thing, as Pierre de Coubertin said. But
Hmm.
all of the stuff that was wrong about about the original story just takes away from that for me, 'cause
Hmm.
I did love Eddie the Eagle Edwards. I
Hmm.
I was so captivated by that story, and the first time I saw this movie, when it hit cable after it came out, hated it because it was so bad and so wrong. This time around, pandemic brain has made me like really those movies, so I enjoyed it a little bit more this time, but I'm not saying it's a good movie at all.
You know what? It really does do a nice showcase on ski jumping and just how incredibly crazy it is. I mean, when you think about it, these people risk their lives. Even if you're the best in the world, there's no guarantees that you can get off the ski jump alive. So it's a really crazy, death defying sport to be in. And the fact that this guy decided, oh, well, that's how I'll make the Olympic team. I'll just go for that is pretty incredible that he even, wanted to participate that way. Was he just a little kind of daft in the head or, you know?
Well, and you get off the 15-meter hill and you did one jump there, so you can move up to the 40-meter jump. And once you get one jump off of that, you can just move up to the big tower. No big
And then be in
deal.
the Olympics and never have done a 90-meter jump and
No,
lands one.
that has to be a total like when I saw that again in the movie, I'm like, there's no way you can just decide to, oh, hey, I'm gonna, those days are long gone.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna show up because I happened to be in Paris at the time and I think I'll run the 100.
And you know what? I really wanted to look up like some footage from the Olympics because I would have loved to see what the fan reaction was. Like, was that
Oh,
fan reaction like pretty much the way it happened?
no. Okay, yes and no, because he already had a following before he got to Calgary. It wasn't like this magical thing that happened. People showed up at the airport being fans of Eddie the Eagle, and he was really good at marketing himself and his story.
Hmm.
So the place was mobbed. They do have the 70 meter on YouTube. They cut to Jim McKay after a while. It is ABC coverage of 1988, and just everyone knew who he was beforehand, before that
Hmm.
jump. So they were all cheering for him, and he landed the first one, and then again, the second jump was just incredible cheering. But no, none of this cheering and dancing around the ski jump
Kind of like
because
Happy Gilmore.
well, there's a good comparison movie right there. It's in that class. But no, he did not do that crazy stuff.
I thought a lost opportunity was the scene with Matti Nukkinen, because Matti Nukkinen historically was quite a character himself. I mean, talk
Hmm.
about larger than life. And then they sort of had him spouting these Yogi Berra, platitudes of nothingness with this accent where I don't know what country they thought Matti Nukkinen was from. It was like, is he from Transylvania? I don't know what is happening there. But I thought it's something they could have done with more historical accuracy and actually come out with a better moment.
And I
Um,
thought it was so weird. I'm like, there would be no way in a competition where the worst performer would be coming up after the best one. You know what I mean? So why would they even be on the elevator together?
I don't know. I don't know how the first jump is.
Or do they just draw straws and that's how you go up the mountain?
No, I think they've contrived that little bit, unless
Right, right.
go to the main part together because their numbers were so far apart. I think Eddie was 24 and Marty was like 49. So they would have gone in number order for the first jump. And then
Mhm.
in the second jump, they would have gone, maybe they were a little bit closer, but I'd have thought that it would be the worst jump first and the last jump, the best jump last.
Mhm. Mhm.
But they certainly could have easily been in the locker room together. I didn't mind the contrived meeting. I felt like if you're gonna bother to contrive this meeting between a legend
Mhm.
and sort of an infamous legend, let's make it a little better. Though I did the line where they have Matti Nukkinen say, "If I wasn't doing this, I'd just be drinking and chasing women." Because that was his reputation as being kind of a wild man. So, they had that's what I mean, they had pieces of
Right, right.
Nukkinen, and then they kind of missed
Squandered
out.
it. Yeah.
I had a hard time believing that Nukkinen didn't know who Edwards was. I mean, honestly, he did not start ski jumping in November of 1987 with
Right,
the goal of
right.
getting to February 1988 for Calgary, a few months later. So obviously, you've got I think he was ski jumped for a couple of years at least, or a year beforehand, and so he's gonna be on the circuit, and at some point, Matti Nykänen the ski jumping world is not that big. It's
Hmm.
not like you'll know who each other is.
Yeah, from the research I did, they said that roughly he was practicing ski jumping for a couple of years before Calgary, and he was on the European circuit. So he would have known, all these guys. I don't know how they would have treated him, but he was around the block. And I was wondering too, when they actually got to the Olympics, how true was the story that he missed the opening ceremony?
Not true at all.
Ugh.
Not true at
Then
all.
why put it in? I
Right.
mean, it's just kind of silly.
This is what frustrated me with this movie and Cool Runnings, actually, which we haven't talked about on the show, is the actual story is so clever and interesting and dimensional. Why are we boiling it down to the training montage and the drunk coach when you've got reality that is actually quite charming? He marched in the opening ceremony. He took it extremely seriously.
Hmm.
He didn't think of himself as a novelty jumper or as a novelty act. He took it seriously. And I think that would have been a better movie.
And he marched to the beat of his own drum so much so that he's gonna fall to peer pressure to drink for the first time and do shots. Like, no, I had a horrible time buying that, and it really showed how the writers struggled to find the enemy of the story
Mm.
to overcome. When I don't know really what the British Olympic Association thought of him at the time. I don't remember that part of the story. I'm sure they weren't thrilled, but maybe they were because it certainly brought a lot of attention to them and to their country.
Mhm.
Winter Games where they aren't known to be strong competitors. So that may have helped in a way, at least for a while. And just to have this weird random enemy that just because we have to hit these high points. It was like somebody who was in charge of production or at the studio who was in charge of this movie said, "No, my script writing book says we have to do this here and we have to have 5 montages and I can get the Hall& and Oates song for cheap and we'll do synthesizer music because it's the '80s," and all of these weird things, and then you go I spent a lot of time thinking about how did Eddie's mom get the "I'm Eddie's mom" knitted sweater so quickly? And then the dad, how did he get the sweater so quickly?
And we never saw her knitting. Like, that's again a lost opportunity. Why when she's on the phone with him? Because he did the part about him stealing the truck is actually true, that he took the family van. But, she has nowhere to go, so she's gotta knit. I mean, come on, it's such an easy call.
And then the father being so anti his dream was just it was so tired. I could see it in the beginning, but as if you could see it from the portrayal, like he was so determined. At some point, wouldn't you just say, we're behind you. Go for it. Do your best. Instead of being so anti the whole time, except for the end after he proves himself. And then he wears the sweater.
Suddenly, I'm so proud of you. Oh,
You
I
know
mean,
what was not tired? Was the brilliant use of the Frankie Goes to Hollywood 2 Tribes. That was some brilliant use of music. So it's I guess it's when he's doing his first 70-meter jump, and they play that. That was some nice use of '80s clever music. I liked that a lot.
What I found really funny too was when he was already at the Olympics and then he did the 70-meter and then he decides to do the 90. And then all of a sudden, Hugh Jackman is in Calgary. Like he just shows up. And I was just like, come on. Really? Really? Honestly, this is where we're at in this movie.
And suddenly he had a coat.
So yeah, and actually he wore a coat this time because it's more cold in Calgary than it is in Germany. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, please, I love Hugh Jackman. He can play any role. I will watch the movie. I was just like, come on, the writers could have done so much better with the coach. Come on.
It's the opposite of my Two Tribes ski jumping moment was when they first show Hugh Jackman attempting a ski jump and he flicks the cigarette out of his.
I thought he was going to use his cigar from Wolverine. I was waiting for the cigar moment.
Was this about the same time? Because every time he looked, like when he was doing, there was a few shots of him like looking in a mirror or looking in a window, and I'm like, why is Wolverine in the snow? He looked very Wolverine in this movie to me.
Yes.
So that was kind of distracting.
Yeah, it only really worked just because of that energy that Taron Egerton had. He had me through this whole, I mean, it was so funny. My husband was in the room when it started and he wasn't planning on watching it, but he got absorbed, in it. And by the end, when he succeeds and at the 90-meter competition, he actually lands his jump. You can't help but root for him. I mean, he did what he came there to do. It was such a positive moment for him, regardless of how crazy it was. You couldn't help be really happy and positive. And I mean, I was like crying tears of joy. I was just like, this is great. I'm so happy for him. And it's funny because I really thought, like you, Alison, I really couldn't remember how much publicity and how much press there was around Eddie the Eagle. I definitely remember him being said, and we probably watched it we were watching the Olympics back then, but I thought for certain he ended up competing in another Olympics. And then when I did my research, I was really shocked to hear that they had changed the requirements purposely to bar folks that really weren't at the top of their game from participating. So on the one hand, I got to applaud the Olympic Committee for looking out for people's safety because it really is such an amazing sport. You really have to know what you're doing. And even if you do know what you're doing, you could still get really hurt. But on the flip side, I was like, oh, well, you won't have an Eddie the Eagle just trying to do his best, regardless of what country. And I thought at the Olympics, there was other sports, and I couldn't really remember what, but there have been times when the commentators have said this person or that person is coming to the Olympics to represent their country. They have no thought of taking home a medal. They're just here because they made it and they did their best and they want to propel their country and be part of the Olympics. And with that ruling, it kind of takes away that ability.
Some sports do have continental quotas or places for underrepresented countries to get slots.
Mm-hmm.
Ski jumping is not that sport.
Right. No, it's just too dangerous.
Too dangerous. They've done it in some ways in bobsled and in some of the sliding sports, and that backfired in various times. That's a place for cross-country skiing and
Right.
running and swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Sports that you want to expand winter sports. You want people from countries that are underrepresented to compete. We don't want anyone to die.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there are sports that will not kill you. So
Right.
let's do the expansion in other ways.
But it almost felt like it was a personal vendetta in this movie. And I don't necessarily think that's probably the reasoning. Who knows? It just felt very personal, like they were purposely trying to bar this kid from going to where he wanted to go. And it felt like they were using the British team as basically the evil guy who was standing in his way of fulfilling his dream.
Right. And the reason they barred him is because he wore really thick glasses and, was a little klutzy on the carpet ski
Right.
mountain that they had in Britain at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But how charming was Jim Broadbent as the announcer?
He was great.
He was like the best OBS announcers that we loved from Tokyo, and I hope show back up for Beijing. Can we get Jim Broadbent on the call? That was lovely.
And Walken, come on. He's a
Walken
legend.
this was like, oh, he needed a payday. I really forgot that he was in the movie, and I thought, he's in the book. He's on this book cover. Wouldn't it be hilarious if he just never showed up?
And then unfortunately, I looked up to see if he really was a real person, and he was completely fabricated too. I'm like, you couldn't bring out real ski jump personalities for this movie? Do a little research? Nothing? We got nothing?
I wonder if the real story was so complicated geographically. Like he spent time in Lake Placid, he
Mhm.
spent time in Finland, he ended up working and sleeping in a Finnish medical
Asylum. Mhm.
hospital. And that to me is really compelling compared to I got a job working in the uh, ski jump bar, which is always crowded for some reason. Like, so many people ski jumping.
And I had to give some personal favors to the owner of the bar to stay there, which was really creepy.
It's like, we have to have a woman in this movie. Oh, let's make her the charming waitress with a heart of gold. Like, come on.
Yeah, and I know, Alison, you touched on this, but I had in my notes, I said, I don't understand Hugh's character not wearing a coat. What was the point of that?
And it's not like he was in an outfit that showed the Hugh Jackman rippling muscles.
No.
Okay, if we're gonna put him, like, in a tight turtleneck or something, then I could say, "Okay, we're trying to appeal to the sex appeal here." But it was just like this schlocky flannel.
No, but I think the sex appeal was the Norwegian ski jumpers in the sauna.
That was a terrifying
With the
scene.
strategically placed items to hide their nakedness from the camera.
I was so horrified, and I am not someone to be horrified by nudity, but that was just so out of place in this
And how did he
film.
have his bathing suit with him? Did he think he'd really need a bathing suit in Germany?
I'm packing my entire closet and going to Germany to learn to ski jump.
Maybe I'll need my bathing suit.
I brought my skis with me, but they're obviously the wrong skis for ski jumping. So I'm going to go into a store and be able to just do a trade for new equipment. How does that work? Come on, just almost every minute you're going, is this really,
And we go to
really
the lost and found, like, and people have lost entire ski suits.
right? You go to the sauna and you forget. This whole movie just felt like a lost opportunity.
Mhm.
Something really fun.
They probably had a ball making it. They probably had a really fun time. And, I think I think I read somewhere where they said that the writers, they wanted to just kind of stress just the positive energy that Eddie had and his undying kind of dedication to fulfill his dream. And they wanted to capture that, but they kind of dropped the ball on everything else.
But they did, I think they did succeed in that, and I think that
Oh,
was
definitely.
to Taron. It was all up
It was all
to his
Taron
performance.
Egerton. Yeah.
Okay, couple things I wanna point out. One, we did get what were their names? Hitty and Howdy, or Heidi and Hody?
Oh, yes.
The mascots for Calgary, appearance from them. Some really great moments from the opening ceremonies, like the neon-clad horse
Yes.
riders.
Yes.
That was fantastic, and I do wanna say, because I have mentioned many times on the show my desire to try ski jumping. This has not dampened my enthusiasm. In fact, I'm going to go buy my pack of cigarettes and go practice the flick, so that as I'm coming down my little 15-meter jump, I'm just gonna flick it right at Jill, who will be taking the film next to the takeoff.
That would be wonderful.
I've never smoked in my life, but I'm gonna learn how to do the Hugh Jackman cigarette flick.
You get the right spot and it just bursts.
And it just bursts into flames for some reason. And I do
Yeah,
want the flask waiting for me at the bottom.
Yeah, this movie did not make me have any desire to learn how to ski jump whatsoever. Maybe go into a sauna with some Norwegians, but besides that, not any desire to try that. whatsoever.
I got no other words. This was not, like I said, it's a good movie to watch when your brain just doesn't want to think, but it's really not. I
It
mean,
was a feel-good movie, you know, so if you
well,
just wanted to waste some time on a really freezing cold day like it was yesterday here in Connecticut, and you just wanted to kinda cozy up on the couch and watch something that just made you feel good, this was a good one to choose.
And despite the sauna scene, it is a family film, surprisingly
Yes,
enough, because everything is
yes.
it's played for
Everything's
laughs, so
PG. Yes,
it's
everything's
very
PG.
easy.
a lot of milk.
And a
And
lot of milk.
and a lot of milk, and all I could think of, though, Allison, is if they're allowing me to review Eddie the Eagle, then come on, cutting edge, it's coming. We gotta do cutting edge. Come on, girls.
Well, this is again along the lines of Gold. Not very factual, and many of the facts are there was an Olympics in Calgary, and it did have a British ski jumper named Eddie the Eagle Edwards.
And he did participate in both the 70-meter and the 90-meter.
All these facts, we're coming up with them.
Here's the facts.
Oh man.
So he
But
did ski there. And I thought it was really cute that they did hone in on the fact that at the end, when the host of the Olympics actually pointed him out in his farewell speech, you know, you could fly like an eagle. I thought that was very poignant because it just shows you can go home without a medal, but it was special to everybody that was there, you know, not just the medalists. And I think that was what they were trying to get across. It's not how well you do, it's just doing your best and just reaching for the stars and getting there, you know, in your eyes.
and that really shows that moment I also liked because it also showed how much of a story and how important Eddie the Eagle Edwards was in the Calgary Games. And it was such a games of the underdog because you also had the cool running story going on.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of underdog feeling, a lot of take part, and that's what's important. And I still think that's a big part of the games.
Hmm.
All right, Fran, thank you so much for this. Good movie for a cold day when you don't want to think.
Yep. Anything with Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman, we're on board.
All right, what do we have next time?
So next up, we have the movie One Light, One World, which is the official 1992 Albertville Olympic movie. So we will actually be doing a complete 180 and doing a really awesome factual Olympics movie. So I can't wait to see what our reaction is to this one.
Excellent, Fran. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Fran. So, I mean, what would you tell future Alison? What would you think future Alison would say about your time in Beijing?
I think future Allison is going to be very upset about all the various snacks that I tried. Because current Allison is already wondering why I keep trying things with labels I can't read. Because so far that has not ended well for me.
Really? Oh, well, you have his tea that did not taste.
I've had
to your
two
liking.
different teas that were not good.
You know,
I tried the oatmeal bar.
yeah, that's not good. It's dry. The oatmeal
Oh.
oatmeal stick. It's dry.
Yeah, it's not good. I tried the sea salt cheese crackers.
No.
No.
Oh, that I think is one of my favorites of the bunch.
I tried the sesame cracker. I basically tried everything on the media center table today. I was bored for a little while.
Did you try the brined egg?
That I've not been brave enough to try. Future Allison probably did break down and try it, and she was probably sorry.
If it plays out at the Paralympics like it was at the Olympics, different venues will have different options in your snacks. So there are little mini loaves of bread. There are little toasts with sweet, like frosting on them a little bit, with little sweetness. There are other crackers. They're kind of like ricey crackers that are very light and airy. But, you know, hopefully you'll find a snack that you enjoy.
So I hope future Allison is having some popcorn laying in bed, rewatching Eddie the Eagle.
Okay, well, let's let future Alison do that. I think future Jill will not be rewatching Eddie the Eagle. It was very hard to get her to watch a second time. You are, so I cannot tell you how lucky you are that the pandemic has made my brain just be cool with not so great movies. And this wasn't even a solid 2 or 2.5 star. This was like a 1.5 star movie.
Well, hopefully, future hopefully future Allison is not in a Chinese prison for trying to go down the ski jump and flick a cigarette off the end of it as I attempt the large hill here in Beijing.
Well, you can't do that because you have to go down like the 40-meter hill first once, and they don't have one of those here that I have seen.
I am Alison and I fear nothing.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Next week, we are going to have a contributor roundtable about our time in Beijing. So send us whatever questions you have about these games or what the closed loop was like.
Post them up in our Keep the Flame Alive Facebook group or hit us up on Twitter or Insta at FlameAlivePod. You can also email us at flamealivepod@gmail.com or call or text us at 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT.
So we will catch you back here next week with the lowdown on what Beijing was like. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, keep the flame alive.